Someone tells you that you did a great job, and the first thing out of your mouth isn't thank you. It is, oh no, it wasn't that good. Or honestly, anyone could have done it. Or you are just being nice. And the weird part is, you are not fishing for more compliments. You genuinely believe the nice thing they said is wrong. So what is actually going on in your brain when someone says something kind and your whole body rejects it? You know this person? They're smart. They work harder than anyone in the room. And people notice. But every time somebody says, hey, that presentation was really impressive, something inside them flinches. Or maybe it is you. Someone compliments your outfit, and you immediately point out the stain you think they missed. They see something good. You see everything wrong. And you've been doing this your whole life without knowing why. And here is what nobody tells you. Rejecting compliments isn't about modesty. It is not about being humble or polite. It is a psychological reflex. And the reason it happens will probably change how you see yourself. Picture this. You are 8 years old. You bring home a test with a good grade, and you are excited about it. You walk through the front door already rehearsing how you are going to tell them, already imagining the reaction. But the reaction you get isn't what you expected. Maybe they glance at it and say that is nice. Now, go wash up. Or maybe they say, well, why didn't you get a perfect score? And suddenly, the good grade doesn't feel good anymore. And something clicks in your brain, not a thought exactly, more like a feeling that settles into your bones. The feeling says, don't get excited about yourself. Don't believe the good stuff. It is safer not to. Psychologists call this contingent self-worth. Your sense of being okay was never unconditional. It always depended on performance. And when you grow up with that wiring, compliments don't feel like gifts. They feel like tests you haven't passed yet. And that early programming doesn't just fade. It rewires how your brain actually processes positive information about you. But here is what is fascinating. When someone pays you a compliment and you reject it, your brain isn't being random. It is actually doing something very specific. It is resolving a conflict between what you just heard and what you already believe. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance. Two pieces of information that can't both be true fighting for space inside your head. But in plain language, it is simpler than that. Someone said you are great and your brain said, no, I am not. And your brain will always pick the version of you it is most familiar with. Even if that version is the worst one, it is not that you are being negative on purpose. Your self-concept was built years ago, and it is running the show. So, when the compliment arrives, it doesn't match the story, and your brain throws it out to keep things consistent. And here is the thing about that internal story. For most people who deflect compliments, it started with how love worked at home. If praise only showed up when you performed, your brain learned something dangerous. Being valued has conditions attached. You earned love with good grades, with being quiet, with not being a burden, with being helpful, with disappearing when things got tense. 3 conditions. Perform. Don't need anything. Don't take up space. And if you met all 3, maybe you'd get a little warmth. And research backs this up. Roughly 68% of adults who struggle accepting praise link their self-worth directly to achievement. So a compliment about who you are, not what you did, doesn't just feel uncomfortable. It feels like a mistake someone made. And that brings us to something most people never think about. The actual fear underneath the deflection. There is this concept in psychology called evaluation apprehension. Fancy term. But it basically means the fear of being truly seen. And in plain English, it sounds like this. If you really see me, you'll see that I am not what you think I am. So, when someone says you are talented or you are a great friend, it doesn't land as warmth. It lands as a spotlight. And spotlights do 2 things. They show what is there, and they show what is missing. That second part is what terrifies you, because somewhere deep down there is a voice that says they're going to figure out. You don't deserve this, and that voice isn't random. It was installed by every time someone gave you love, and then took it back. But here is where it gets really interesting. Deflecting compliments isn't just about fear. It is actually about control. Psychologists who study self-verification theory found something that surprised even them about how we handle positive feedback. People don't just prefer hearing things that match their self-image. They actively seek out confirmation, even when their self-image is negative. In other words, rejecting a compliment isn't passive. It is your brain actively working to keep your identity stable and predictable. Because if you accept the compliment, then you have to update the story. And updating the story means risking hope. Hope that maybe you are actually good enough. And hope, if you grew up the way many of these people did, is dangerous. Because hope means expecting something good. And expecting something good means it can be taken away from you. So the deflection becomes a strategy. If I never accept that I am good, nobody can prove me wrong later. If I never let the compliment in, I never have to grieve when the person who gave it changes their mind about me. And this is the part that breaks my heart a little. The people who deflect compliments the most are usually the ones who need them the most. Not because they're broken, but because they built an entire system to survive without ever hearing that they're enough. They got really good at being useful, at being reliable, at being the one who holds everything together, at never asking for anything. 3 skills: show up, fix things, disappear before anyone has to thank you. And they perfected all 3 by the time they were 12. And here is the paradox that nobody talks about. They deflect compliments, but they remember every single one. Every kind thing anyone ever said is filed away somewhere in their memory, like evidence they're afraid to bring to trial, because part of them wants to believe it. Part of them is desperate to believe it. But the other part says, don't you dare. And that tug of war between wanting to be seen and being terrified of visibility, that is not a personality flaw. That is a survival strategy that worked when you were small and doesn't quite fit anymore, now that you've grown. So if you recognize yourself in any of this, I want you to hear something. And I mean, really hear it. The compliment wasn't wrong. The compliment was information. Accurate information about how you land in the world. The problem was never that people said nice things. The problem was that nobody taught you it was safe to let those things in. And that is not your fault. That is not something you chose. That is something that happened to you before you had the words for it. And here's the thing about survival strategies. They deserve respect. They kept you safe when safe was hard to find. But they also deserve to be questioned. Not destroyed, not shamed, just gently asked whether they're still necessary. Because the next time someone tells you that you are good at something, you don't have to believe them completely right away. You just have to not argue, just for a second. Just let it sit there without pushing it away and see what happens. That is it. That is the whole practice. Not agreeing, not performing gratitude, just not fighting it for once. And maybe over time, the gap between what people see in you and what you see in yourself starts to close. Just a little. And that might be the bravest thing a person like you can do. Not deflecting, not performing, just letting yourself be seen. If this hit home for you, please subscribe. And if you want to support these deep dives, hit that join button to become a channel member. I would genuinely appreciate your support. And hey, next time someone says something kind about you, just try saying thanks and nothing else.